at the end for those that have attended. So cool. Like I mentioned, I am using a new tool here and using Microsoft Teams for webinars. So it is our first attempt at it. So bear with me as I kind of learn as I go here. It is pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to, like I said, ask for your patience if something technological happens. So all good things. Well, welcome everybody. I am Josh Henry. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me today on this webinar. We are going to talk about casting a compelling vision for your church. And as I can imagine, most of you are here because that's something you're interested in. So I appreciate that. So hopefully you all can see my screen. I got a screenshot, so I'm going to assume you can. But like I said, welcome. Appreciate you being here. We'll just kind of talk about what to expect. So we are going to spend about 30 to 45 minutes here together in a presentation. I'm really easygoing. So if you're here and you have a question as I go, if it's pertinent to where I'm at in the presentation, we'll address it. If not, there will be time at the end for Q&A. So my operations manager, Steven, is on board, and he'll kind of be monitoring the questions as we go. There is a raise hand feature in this. So if you have that opportunity or you have something comes up, feel free to raise your hand and we will talk from there. So a couple things. My request of you, I know many of you are church leaders, might be pastors, preaching, all that good stuff, and you know how it is. I have one request, or several requests, very simple. I just ask you, close your other browsers, silence your phones, notifications, just give me a few minutes of your time. I will be quick. I promise to be a good steward of your time and hopefully get through what I want to share and hopefully give you some resources and some ideas and tips that will help your ministry. So stay with me. We will we'll get through things. And those of you that do stay to the end, we do have a special offer that we're going to provide you that will help your ministry for sure. So I recognize a few names here, but actually don't recognize everyone. So thank you for those of you that signed up. For those of you that don't know, my name is Josh Henry. I am the owner and founder of SimplifiedChurch.com. We are primarily an outsourced bookkeeping and accounting provider for churches. However, we are, as a bigger picture, really trying to holistically help pastors. My heart is, like you, I was a pastor myself. I've served on the other side of the desk, and you wear big shoes. You serve a big role and often a thankless job. And my mission is to equip you. I see far too many pastors that have left the ministry and become Edward Jones agents because of just the rigors, the hassles, the stuff you have to deal with that you didn't sign up for when you decided to become a pastor. So I want to be here. I want to help you. I want to equip you, and that's what we're doing. So quick question, if you wouldn't mind putting into the chat, where are you from? And we'll add to that, what is your role at the church? So like to just kind of see context we're dealing with, some of the locations, where everybody's kind of coming from. We are a national ministry, which is kind of cool to see that. Hey, Freddie, Tampa, Florida, one of my favorite places to be. We enjoy vacationing over there on that western shore. So, all right, cool, Freddie, pastor. All right. Hello, Ken from Charlotte. Very cool. See a couple people trying to type in here. Amy at Emmanuel, very cool. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, Brian, probably. So, Blue, good to see you, man. Glad you could take a few minutes to be here. So, hope you and your family are doing well. Those girls are getting started back in school. I'm sure life is probably going crazy for you there. Very cool. Well, hey, if you wouldn't mind, continue to put those chats in put your info in the chat. We will continue to kind of see where everybody's from, and I appreciate you doing that. So, first question I have for you as we get started. So, if I questioned most of the attenders of your church, and I term that intentionally because I didn't want to say members, I didn't want to say guests, I didn't want to say congregation. So most people that, because there's a lot of different people that will, and a lot of different ways that we can define who's attending your church. But if I were to question them and ask them, would they be able to share your church's vision with me? And I'm not even talking word for word. I'm just talking, could they even get me a semblance of what the vision for your church or ministry is? As you may have seen in some of the texts that went out, we've been doing some research, find out that only 2% of churches really have a vision that is cast. And as we talk through this, we'll define that. We'll define what a vision is versus what a vision isn't, and where that needs to be. And we'll talk through things as we get going today. So, first question, what does vision do? And again, vision, these words play a lot of different roles in our churches and in lives, but we really want to talk about vision as it pertains to your ministry. So now I'm about to show you the corniest, dumbest slide I've ever made. It was a lot better in my head, but here it is. Vision brings clarity. This slide had a whole lot more, it looked better in my head before I built it out, but it is what it is. So as you can see, when you don't have vision, things around it are blurry, and you get questions, you get people that are unsure or things like that. So vision brings clarity to your ministry. Vision sets direction. Vision tells everybody where we're going. It gives everybody an idea of what's happening so that they can get on board with it. Vision builds unity. When you have a vision, when you have a big vision, people can buy into that. People can get on board. People want to do that. And along with that, vision inspires. So have you ever been concerned with your first-time guests not being second-time guests, or feeling like your church has a revolving door where people come, people spend a couple weeks, but then they don't come back? We are always concerned with how do we close the back door of the church. I would contend if you're not casting a vision or providing something people can buy into, they will not see a reason to stay. Now, let me just caveat everything I'm about to say for the rest of the time today. I am with you, Pastor. We want to say that God is bigger than everything. We want to say that the gospel is enough. And so we're going to lay that on the table. We're going to assume we're all there, that the gospel stands for itself. But let me tell you, what I'm talking about is taking this and getting to the people that aren't bought in as well as we are as saints of the church, where we've been around church, we've grown up in church maybe, or you've been saved, you've bought in, you're there. What I'm talking about, we have to set a vision that inspires people that may not be quite where we're at in our spiritual walk. So if I could put that caveat on the table, just so you don't call me well, I don't say hypocrite, that's not the right word. Just say that I'm not being sacrilegious here. We want to share the gospel. We want to preach. We want to teach. We want to reach people for Christ. That's a given. And this is what we're going to talk about to get there. So the vision defines how we're going to accomplish the mission. The vision, the mission's the same for all of us. So this is where that difference comes, because you might hear vision statement, you might hear mission statement, and you might try to get confused about which one's first, which one's second, where does it go? I've been confused about it for many, many, many years, because I've always heard, oh, you have to have a mission statement and that's it. Well, for me, it's a little different. For me, the vision is first. The vision statement is first, because especially in church, the mission is the same. The mission is the same for all of us. The Great Commission, go into all the world, preaching, teaching the gospel of Christ, right? And that's it. So that is our mission. The vision defines how we're going to accomplish that in our context and in our ministry location. Now, you already know this, your pastor, where there is no vision, people perish. Let's just flesh that out. Where there is no vision, if there is no vision for your church or where your church is going, the church will perish. It's quite simple. Now, it's not going to happen tomorrow, more than likely, but it will happen over time if you are not casting a vision on how you're going to accomplish the mission. So like everything, every presentation you've ever seen, before we can talk about what it is, we have to talk about what it's not. So let's go there. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page so we can define this. So what your vision is not. Your vision is not empty platitudes. Your vision is not just words that are made up to sound good, that are buzzwords, that are the current trendy words that we use in church. So you all know what they are. You've been there, done that. You know, it's that corporate jargon, those corporate buzzwords, synergistic, and we're going to do these things. And again, it's there. It's not jargon. It's not Christianese. It's not terms that only we as the body of Christ will know. It's not those things that are going to cause confusion or that just get a little bit overused. Stephen's going to laugh at me because I'm about to say it, and some of you guys may have heard this, but there's always the term I use a lot of times. It's not a Jesus juke. It's not that old time Christian saying that we know we've done there, and the average lost person looks at us like we're crazy. It has to have real value. It's not unclear or vague. There are lots of things we could cast a vision and cast it huge. Oh, we're going to reach our community through this. Okay. It's kind of vague. It's not out there. And finally, it's not a generic phrase. Again, this kind of goes back with the empty platitudes and the jargon. It's not just something that says we're going to do that. Every church in the country could set up and say their vision is love God, love people. That's great. I would contend that's the mission. That's not a vision. So what is a vision? So what are the elements of a compelling vision? What does a compelling vision look like for your ministry? First off, a compelling vision has clarity. It clearly defines your church's purpose and direction. It is that vision. It's what you can share with a first-time guest, a second-time guest, a new member, someone who's interested in your church, someone who wants to know what's going on. What are you guys doing? How are you reaching the Atlanta area, the Beaufort area, the Alice, Texas area, the Charlotte, North Carolina? How are we reaching that community? This is what we're going to do. And this is what you can get behind. This is who we're reaching. Secondly, a compelling vision is able to be quantified. So you can identify metrics that can be tracked and managed. We'll talk about it more as we get into putting together the vision. But we want to have things that are metrics that we can identify, that we can go into. And I'll talk to you more about why we want to actually have metrics over just empty thoughts. A compelling vision has inspiration. It evokes emotion and passion in your congregation. This gets people on board, gets people on fire, gets people to rally behind something that they can be involved with. And finally, a compelling vision is challenging. If you're not challenging people, then you're just like the guys down the street. There's no difference in your church versus going to anybody else in town that's going to do relatively the same thing. We want to set audacious goals that require people to stretch, might require that dangerous word when it comes to church to change, but that's also going to require us to have faith. We want those things in our goal that there's no other way we can accomplish this except that God shows up and God guides us to this vision. So in this vision, in your vision, in what you're doing, we want to have vision-centric leadership, as I call this. Pastor, I will contend you are the cheerleader of this. What is your role? For those of you that are pastors, what is that role? Your role is to champion the vision. So it's a big deal. Not only do you have to come up with the vision, but you have to be the champion. You have to make this vision part of your vernacular. Make it part of the DNA of the church. Everything you do, some part of your vision becomes to use a secular term, because the brand of your church. This is what you do. This is who you are. This is how we serve. Vision serves the mission, and then the vision also drives your culture. Vision drives your strategy. Vision drives all the things you do. As part of this too, your role is also to equip others to help you in the effort of casting and championing the vision. It's encouraging others to buy in to the vision. And then you have to model the way you want the vision shared and expressed. If you're doing your job at sharing the vision, the giving people the model of what you want them to see the vision done through, they will follow. That's the way. People don't not do things because they don't want to. They don't do things because they don't know how. They want to see a model. They want to see it modeled for them so they can then mimic what you're doing and how you're doing it. More than likely, leadership was not a big part of, if you went to seminary, it was not a big part of your seminary education. So that's why this is so important that we introduce these topics now and we work on it now, and we start to open this door to set these groundworks that are going to help you as you lead the ministry. So a question, who's responsible for championing the vision and mission of the church? Well, everyone really. But pastor, you have to start. You have to buy in yourself so that as we move through this, you are pushing out everything you want and sharing with people this vision that God has given to you. So now you're probably sitting there going, Josh, I got on this. That's great. I understand it. Well, how do we develop it? How do we build it? What are the steps involved? Well, let's talk about it. First off, maybe you're like me. I struggle. I'm a busy guy. I run the company. I have a family. We have a farm. We do all kinds of things. I never stop. I struggle to find an hour of my day that I can commit to anything really. It's very difficult for me to do that. It's very difficult for me to focus. Stephen's very well aware of the ADD that I have. But this is important. To start the vision planning process, you have to stop. You have to get away. And you have to pray, spend time with the Lord. Now, some of you may not have the time available. You may not be able to do this in your context, or you may not have to do this at your house. This is where you're going to have to commit to. Maybe you have to schedule time to get away. You may have to go get a hotel room and go somewhere to a retreat center, someplace. Take a friend. Do something, somebody that can hold you accountable, someone that can walk you through this. For some of you, you may be so busy, the idea of getting away and getting, a day of rest and all you're going to do is sleep the whole time. Well, that, granted, you need that, but that's not going to help you get this vision done. We want to stop, seek the Lord, and give ourselves that opportunity to just be quiet and listen. It's so hard. I get it. This is probably one of the hardest slides, one of the hardest steps of this process. But you've got to seek the Lord before any of this is worth anything. But your next step, once you're there, think about the future. Look ahead. What does ministry look like in your context? What are you wanting to do? What do you want to see? What has God, what is that idea? What are those visions? What are those things, those pictures, the images that God has revealed to you in that time you spent with him? What does ministry look like 1 year ahead? 3 years, 5, 10 years ahead? What does the ministry look like? What you're going to come up with is probably a very daunting picture. And that's good. You want to have a big vision. Knowing that the vision is big is something people can rally behind. That's what you need. Now, you're going to look at that and then don't let it overwhelm you, because once you have a big vision, once you have that end result, we can take it and reverse engineer the steps. We can go backwards. The old adage, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If we reverse engineer the steps, we can come back and put the pieces in place now that we want to do to accomplish the goal. How many of you had a goal or something you thought you wanted to do, or a dream, or it may not have been something you set down. Maybe you said, man, when I'm 40, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Or you said, man, I want to get out of debt. Well, if I look at making these payments right now, I'm going to get out of debt in 2024. And you looked at that date 2 years ago and it looked like it was so far off. And now you're sitting here and we're coming up on, 3 months out of 2024. Guess what? Had you taken the steps, you'd be there today. Those are the things that we need to do. Start putting the steps in place now so that as we progress, you can see what's happening and you can get there to accomplish the goal that you've set. Next, let's ask some qualifying questions. What are those? What are the qualifying questions? Once you have this vision, Now we got to go back. What are the steps involved in filtering that down? Well, kind of going back to what I at the beginning with the stupid slide that I put together. What is the first question? Is it clear? Now, the vision may be obvious to you, but you know the details. You've seen you've gone through the process. It makes sense to you. But your job now is to tell the story and fill in those details for everyone else. You need to make sure that everyone's on the same page as you, so that if you say something that you assume is obvious between you, it may not be. It's your job now to tell the story. Secondly, is it measurable? This goes back to what I talked about earlier in setting up some metrics for your budget. Now, I'm not talking about, being all concerned about numbers. Nobody likes that pastor. Nobody wants to be that guy that's showing up, well, how many did you have in worship last Sunday? And using it as some form of a bragging board. But we do have to use metrics, because what gets measured gets managed. If we have numbers, if we have measurements, we're able to see. I had a pastor one time talk to me, and I was asking about attendance at his church, and he said, well, we don't keep attendance. We don't count the worship service, but I can tell you it feels full. And I said, well, that's great, but you have no idea if your church is growing or dying. You have no clue. It feels full, relies on feelings. It relies on subjectivity. Let me tell you, I hate subjective sports. I hate sports that have judges that use their interpretation or their opinion on something to measure the results. That's why I love hockey. The puck went in the net or it didn't. You may have a sport you like too. We want to objectively manage the results we're expecting or hoping for, so we can find ways to quantify the results. Now, in these numbers, as you're setting these goals, as you're looking at these things, here's a phrase. I'm going to make these clear. We want our goals and the things that we're pushing towards to be risky, but not stupid. Okay. I'll put it in when we sit. I'll put it in the chat, or we'll send it out to everybody later. Or you can look at it on our website. I wrote a blog post about this where we budget on faith, but we spend on reason. We budget in a way that enables God to move, that God can show up, God can be there and do great things in our ministry. But we're not going to spend money just expecting that it's going to magically fall from the sky. We have to spend on reason, and we'll talk more about that as we get closer here. Another question: does the vision does it inspire? Is it inspiring? Because if it's not, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to follow you. So, Richard Sheridan, the ability to envision the future is as essential to leadership as the ability to articulate it in a way that is inspiring to others. When people hear the vision you're sharing, this compelling vision that you've come up with, is it something they can rally behind? You'll be surprised what people can get behind. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves, and they're desperately seeking leaders who can inspire them with dreams of a future. If you want to know if your vision is inspiring, ask around, share it, see what happens. That's how you'll know. The other part about your vision, the final piece, is, can you sell it? I hate to bring this up. I hate to put it in secular terms, but you've got to sell the vision, Pastor. This is the piece where you've got to put on a salesman hat, and you unfortunately have to sell the church. Now, don't put that out in a quote and get me misrepresented or whatever, but your vision has to be sold to some extent. You've got to be able to share it with people, that you get buy-in, that you inspire them to see where you see the church going, how you want to reach people for the Lord in your community, but you want to see accomplished in the ministry, that people buy in and they're willing to go there with you. You have to believe in it enough that you can share it as part of your DNA. So what now? What's next? We've developed the vision. We've looked it through. We know we can sell it. Now, how do we implement it? Well, a compelling vision will build trust in your ministry. We already talked about unity. We already talked about inspiration. We already talked about rallying people. Well, we want to build trust in the ministry now too. How many of you struggle with a lot of questions from people at church, or you get a lot of different ideas, a lot of different suggestions, a lot of armchair Monday morning quarterbacks in the church? Amen. Well, let's be real. Ministry costs money. It is what it is. I hate that we're there. It's just the very fact of doing ministry. It's going to cost money. We'll just talk about it as the elephant in the room. Now, I'm not talking about health and wealth, prosperity gospel, or anything like that. And as you know, you've probably dealt with this. People misconceive the church in saying that, oh, the church is just out there for money. Church just wants my money. That's all they're here for, you know. But let's do this. Remember, vision inspires. When people are inspired for a cause that they can rally behind, or they see an end in sight they can get behind, they are more likely to devote their time and resources to the cause. People give because they're bought in, because they see what happens here. So your vision is going to evoke generosity. Most churches struggle for income because they haven't cast a vision people can buy into. Now, let's just face it, we're in a time. The biblical call to tithing has become lost on most people in the church. I'll never forget the first time I received a giving statement, just kind of recapping our giving from the treasurer at our church, and handed it back to her and said, "Well, this is wrong. There's no way that's only 20% of our average attendance have listed. Who did you miss?" And luckily, she was an older lady, somewhat of a mother to me. I'd grown up through the youth group with her, and she said, "No, Josh, that's reality. 20% of the people do 80% of the work." And this is very true as it pertains to giving. You probably know this about your ministry. So as we've developed vision, as we've put this together, we know we're building trust. Trust builds generosity. We need to create a budget that has a direct relation to our vision. Have you ever been around a church that seems to spend money indiscriminately? I'm not even sure that's a word, but where they just, well, the bill came in, we're going to pay it. Have you been around a church that is overly concerned about cash flow and spending? Maybe you're in a church where there's not an expense that can be made without it going through a committee or it going to a vote or things like that. Where did that come from? How did that get started? Why do we have that attitude in some churches? Do you have deacons or finance team or a treasurer that might be a little bit stingy? We'll talk about that. With a clear vision, you'll be able to make spending decisions more easily. And also, with a clear vision, everyone can know where the money is going to be utilized. How are we going to allocate and steward the resources that we have for our church? That's why we need a vision-driven budget. That's the next step. Once you have the vision, the budget is built from the vision. They're one and the same. The vision directs the budget process. What does a vision-driven budget give us? Well, it encourages and builds trust in giving. Once you have a vision-driven budget, things that people see where we're going, how we're going to get there, what the end result is going to be. Well, I want to give to that. I want to be a stakeholder in where you're going, Pastor. It guides and directs your decision making. The budget becomes the filter through which you make decisions. It is that thing that you look at and you say, well, we had this ministry opportunity fall in our lap. Man, this would be a good thing to do. But if you look through your vision, does it fit? Does it get us to where we want to go as a church? And if that answer is no, well, the vision directs the budget at that point. The other thing you want to do here at this point is, as you're rallying people into generosity, and this is a thought that just came to me, you want to have people understand my giving equals ministry happening. That's how you encourage generosity. When people see that their gift creates tangible ministry opportunities, they're more likely to become more generous and more involved in that process. A vision-driven budget reduces conflict. I wish I had a way to do a poll on here, but I'd love to ask how many of you have no conflict in your church. I'm going to venture a guess that it's every one of you. But a vision-driven budget reduces conflict because this is the vision. This is what you bought into. This is where we're going. There are no arbitrary decisions that are going to be made by anyone because we're just all going in this same direction. So it is what it is. It reduces conflict. It reduces questions. It reduces that person coming to you on Sunday morning, Pastor, that has the next greatest ministry idea that you're going to go. And you say, great. I get cynical. I've been around church a long time, so I'm not going to bring up any alternative ministry ideas that I've heard in the past. But some of those ministry ideas that one person might speak to them, and it's not going to reach the whole people. And when you look at it and you look at it back, and that was a really bad idea. Let's dig back to some of our 1980s ministry things did. For those of you that have been around long enough, to some of those things, they're great things, but there were some that were a little bit questionable. Finally, I will contend a vision-driven budget saves you time. Why? Because you know what there is to work on. You may have seen one of the Facebook reels that I put out in the last week or so, and talking about, if you're like me, I got a lot going on. I am constantly moving. There's never a time when I don't have something I could be doing. Now, that sometimes feels like I spin my wheels, because I have to get stuff done. I'm being busy, but am I being productive? Am I working on the right things? Well, a vision helps you. I'm calling myself out here. A vision helps you focus on the right things and the things that you need to work on. So a lot of those meetings that you're having with people that you're answering the same question over and over and over, well, if you cast the vision, and that's kind of what they want to know more about the ministry, here it is. It's in the vision. We're done. So you need a vision-driven budget. Case in point. That's what needs. Let me tell you a story. So we serve a church. We'll call them Resurrection Church just to protect the innocent here. But the pastor at this church, when we came in, the pastor always felt like he was fighting with the treasurer to pay for things. Now, she didn't do a bad job. She was paying the bills that came in the door. The electric bill always got paid, but it was those little things. It was hey, we need a camera to send with the youth pastor. I'll tell you how old this is, but we want a camera to send with the youth pastor so that he can on the mission trip. And we've got money in the budget. We've allocated a youth budget. It's fine. We've got it available. And she said, nope, we're not spending that. And she held hostage all of the funds of the church. Well, also along with this, now giving was decreasing, and it seemed like the church started living week to week on income. They always said, well, Pastor, we're going to set your pay. Hopefully we have enough money come in next week that we can cover it. And it was getting to a point where tough decisions were going to need to be made in the near future if something didn't change. When we came into the church, we identified some key issues at hand. I actually sat down with the treasurer one-on-one, and we just talked with her. And I learned she didn't intend to be stingy. She didn't want to be in that role where she was holding hostage that money, but she had been in the church a long time. And she saw the church go through a season where they almost had to close their doors because they had some indiscretionate things happening. And she took it upon herself that was never going to happen again. And she felt it was her duty to protect the finances. There were some previous pastors, some previous leaders that were not good stewards. And so there. But when we asked about the budget, they were able to provide one, but it was essentially a template from another church. It was just one that they found, might as well got it online. It had nothing to do with their mission and vision. It was, again, very generic, very plain, we have administrative and office supplies. We have this, blah, 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 blah. You get it. So they were hoping their plug and play numbers would work, but they essentially just funded expenses and hoped they had enough enough left over for anything else they wanted to do. So it really wasn't a vision-driven budget. It was really just, well, these are expenses we have. Let's just get them paid. No foresight, no plan in place, no roadmap, no destination in mind. So we sat down and showed them how to retool their budget and switch to a vision-driven budget. Now, of course, we had to talk with them about implementing a vision first. That was first and foremost we had to sit down with them to do. But within months, giving rebounded. It was amazing because Pastor was casting this vision on where we're going, and we showed them why they needed to be stakeholders, why we needed their commitment, their generosity to accomplish this mission. And it was amazing how this took and moved. Now, the treasurer even told me later, she felt like a weight was lifted, and she was no longer worried or felt that she had to control the money. She could see where the money was going. She saw there was a plan in place, and she bought it. She trusted the process now because she could now see the vision. She felt the confidence and the trust to let go a little bit. So what? So why am I telling you all this? Why are we here? What's going on? Well, I want to give you an experience like we had with Resurrection Church. Now, there's a few of you here at 8 in a room. Okay. I can't get to every one of you. I just don't have time. But what I can do is I put together a budget builder blueprint course. Now, what this does is it walks you through basically everything I shared with Resurrection Church, as we call them. It walks you through that entire process. I didn't do anything out of the ordinary that I wouldn't do for every one of you. So what is it? What is the Budget Builder Blueprint? Well, it's an on-demand web course that I put together. This will be our 3rd year putting it out to churches. We've put a couple hundred. I shouldn't say that. We've put a little less than 100 people through it at this point. So it's an on-demand course available to you. 40 videos detailing the process. They start big picture, philosophical things, ideas, visits, what we're talking about from a vision strategy, all the way down into the more practical implementation of that budget. I offer you templates, lessons. They're all designed to help you craft a vision-driven budget. So what some of the things we go over, and these are the topics that you'll really get. Big rocks, little rocks. If you've ever been around the Franklin Covey time management principle, I use the same idea for budgeting, and we'll talk about that. Ministry growth engines. One of those things we've trademarked here, that is, what are those things that create growth in your ministry? Now, we'll talk more about it. Not necessarily numerical growth, okay? Just growth, however you want to define it. How you can use your budget to make vision-based budget decisions, vision-based, should say, spending decisions, and what gets spent. And finally, how to create and craft a vision-driven budget. So, who is this for? Pretty much everybody. If you're leading a young church and you've never had a budget, this will be for you. If you lead a existing church that's had a budget for a long time, but it's kind of become bloated. I use a story all the time with our bookkeeping church partners as they're coming on board or looking at what we provide from a bookkeeping standpoint in a financial system. That over time it's like the telephone game. One person that we played with your kids. One person started with the story, and we told the story and passed it to the next person all the way around the circle. But by the end of everybody in the circle, the story has drastically changed. That happens in churches. You've probably seen it, where you've changed from treasurer to treasurer every couple of years, and before you know it, you've got money or funds or things allocated or budget lines, and nobody really knows what they're for. Nobody really knows what's going on. It's become bloated over time. This will help you through that. If you're a church leader and you want to get more information about church spending, how things are set up, it's for you. If you're leading a replant, a church revitalization project, kind of like the one that has an existing budget, this helps you get a fresh look at the budget in your financial system. This is also for treasurers if you want to get a better handle on the finances. So as part of my offer to you, so this is why we're here. I mean, I want you to have this course. This year, we are actually doing 2 options for it. The option 1 is on demand. Let me see if I can get there. On demand of the course. It's available to you. Go through it. Do it on your own time. Whatever. Everything's there. It's a DIY type scenario. But I heard back from a lot of pastors and last year as we put the course out, and they said, "This is great, Josh, but I don't have time to watch the videos. I forget. I don't do it." So we've offered a second option, which is the course combined with a group coaching cohort. So you'll get that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as I define each option here for you. So the first one, on-demand DIY. What is it? You get the lifetime access to the course. Again, all the videos, everything that's there, you get access. But in addition, with this as we're here, this budgeting season, we're there. If you're not already working on your budget for this next year, and you're a January to December fiscal year church, time is now. Let's start. You'll get an ebook as well. The Elephant in the Room: How to Talk About Finances with Your Church. As you know, you want to have a low attendance Sunday, announce beforehand you're going to talk about giving in your sermon. and watch your lowest attendance Sunday of the year, unfortunately. Ebook, you'll get another ebook, Vision Casting Guide, how to walk through some of the things we talked about in this webinar, some of the things we've talked about, that how we can cast a vision for the church and get going. And then downloads, we'll have a church budget checklist. It's just a way to walk you through the timing, reminders, steps, what needs to be done in sequential order as you're building out the budget for this upcoming year. This one, we've always sold it at $297. For this year, we're going to mark it down to $197. So that's available to you. I'll put a link here and then after this next slide where you can go on and see it. If you're interested, it's great. $197 for the DIY. So option 2, what is that? Well, again, this was for those pastors that told me, hey, Josh, it's great you gave me DIY. I just didn't have time to do it. I don't have time to look through that. I just need it done for me. Well, I can do it for you, but that doesn't help you. That's like getting an Excel spreadsheet from somebody that has a bunch of formulas in it, and then you have to figure out how they all work. That's not how this works. We want to help guide you through the process and help hold you accountable and coach you through the process of building your budget. So in option 2, you'll get all the bonuses that we talked about in the last one, bi-weekly live coaching and implementation calls. These will start the second week of September. We'll put these out. We'll put out links and invites to those calls. You can hop on them. It'll be a little bit of coaching and guidance on what you should be working on in that time period, in that part of the process. But then open for questions, open for chats, whatever. We're going to spend the time with you to walk through that process. You'll get accountability with our private community. We will have a system that you'll be able to log into. Works somewhat similar to a Facebook group without all the bad stuff that comes along with being on Facebook. So you'll have access to 24/7 to a group, ask questions, put it on there. We'll get chats, we'll get ideas, get some help. It's all there. And then access to a coach via email for church specific questions, things that relate primarily to your ministry, that will be available to you. So this piece with the course and the additional coaching part is $497. Again, that's just a one-time. If we would, that's as if I would come in and consult with you to do this at your church. It would be more than that, but this way you get the best of the coaching, the accountability, along with the information of the church. So that one, if you go to grow.simplifychurch.com right now, it's open now. It will be open until midnight on September 1st to sign up for either option that you may have. But feel free to go there and pick one that serves you best. So that's all I've got. I want to open this time up for you now for questions. What you got? What can I help you with? Do you have questions about the vision? Do you have questions about the budgeting? Do you have questions about the course itself? What can I help you with? I know we don't have a ton represented here, but love to sit here and just spend a few minutes talking about what are those things that are affecting your ministry and that would help you make this next year great. An example of a good vision. Hey, Ken, I'll get your email. You caught me off guard with that one. But I have your email. I'll get you a copy of that. So great question. Oh, hey, here we go. There we go. Steven, you the man. Yeah, Ken. I mean, it is. I mean, sometimes you have vision again, and what we found in most churches, there is a vision, but it was just somewhat thrown together, or let's just. I've also seen them where they are vision by committee, where everybody kind of sat in a room and kind of put it all together, and well, we got parts of a little bit of what everybody else kind of wanted, but nothing specifically that everyone can rally behind, or that any one person is super excited about. So Good questions though, Ken. We'll put the link there in the chat, so if you want to just hop and click that, it'll put you right over. But yeah, so I'm going to hang out here again. I'm here for questions, so I'm going to hang out for about another 5-10 minutes, depending on how the conversation goes here. If you have any questions, shoot them, please. We're here for you. Learning this new tool of using Microsoft Teams for a webinar presentation.